Bring it on, One-Eyed Willie.
Ooh! Yeah! Your bullets, they're really fast.
Welcome to Mojo at the Movies, a very special edition this time because we have some special guests. Joining me in studio today, we have Justin, who is our comic book expert. How you doing, Justin?
Very good.
And joining us via the wonders of the internet, live from Austin, Texas, we have a very special guest. This is Korey from Double Toasted. How you doing, Korey?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we're very excited to have you as well. You're one of our favorite YouTube channels. We love your podcast, and we love what you say about movies and pop culture, and I think we're kind of aligned. So what we wanted to do today is a collaborative review of Deadpool, and this time, you've already done your spoiler review, your spoiler-free review. We've done ours, so this is a no-holds-barred. We're going all spoilers.
So I can say anything I want.
Absolutely anything you want. In fact, might as well start with you. Let's let it rip. Korey, what'd you think of Deadpool 2? How did it compare and stack up to Deadpool 1?
You know, I've had a few days to think about it to make sure I know what I'm saying, and I like the movie. I like the movie a lot. Don't think it's as good as the first one, though.
Ooh.
And I was really scared to say that because these nerds are really freaking the hell out over this movie. But I have to sit back and say yes, I still mean what I say. I like the teasers leading up to the movie more than the movie itself.
Interesting, because I mean the teasers, the whole meta aspect is really played up in the teasers.
Right.
But Justin, you and I, when we did our review, we were skewing more towards liking this one than the first one.
Yeah, and part of that is because I liked the first movie, but I wasn't as blown away by it as a lot of people were. And this one kind of worked in the ways I found that the first one didn't, in as much as this character is all about being meta and all about kind of breaking the fourth wall. And I felt like the first movie did that, but in a very kind of audience-friendly way. Even though it did push the boundaries a little bit, it felt like something I had seen. This felt a little bit more true to the character in that, like, he always is aware that he's in a story, it seemed like this time around.
Yep.
And that was kind of one of the things I felt was missing. For me, this movie works better, but I could see the argument that it's a simpler and more straightforward story in the first one. So if you're not like familiar with the character, or you don't really care about like how it relates to the comic books and stuff like that, I think the first movie is objectively a better movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But for me, I just sitting in the theater, I had a better time with this one than I did with the first one.
So Korey, what about the story itself? I mean, we mentioned the difference between the story in the first one and this one. How did you, and we can say anything we want because this is the spoiler review. So what did you think of the story itself?
Well, I have nothing to say anymore. He's the comic book expert. I'll see y'all later, man. No, man. You see, you hit it right there, Justin, when you said that the first one was kind of a simpler movie, and I think that's what I liked about it. I think this one, I now feel like I'm just coming in and I'm kind of shitting all over the film, and I really did like it. I did. I'm not trying to nitpick at it, but I just felt like the story was a little more convoluted, and I actually thought the plot, it was the meta jokes, the references, the inside jokes that really made this movie. But when you scoop all that to the side, you have a really lame plot. I mean, I think that this one fell into that trap of like, man, we had an origin story, so we really had something to say. We get to the second one, it was like, oh, hell, man, we got to do something. So let's just steal, a really basic storyline from, in this case, Terminator 2. And
yeah,
Looper.
Basically.
Yeah,
exactly.
Looper, big time, yeah.
And then we'll just let Deadpool do the rest and do his thing. And
That's
cover
totally
that we
fair.
have nothing to do. But that's not to say that the movie doesn't work. I think, Justin, you hit it right there when you said that as a fan, this movie was made for you, and you got what you wanted.
A little bit, yeah. And I think that the other thing is, like, you're right to bring up Looper and stuff like that, because these characters in the comics were like heavily influenced by Terminator. Obviously, Cable is just basically Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like,
right.
Ultimately, that's his plot line in the comics, is to protect that little girl that we see for like 2 seconds in the movie before she's burnt to a crisp. There's just elements of this movie that, without the knowledge of, oh, they're playing this up, or they're taking something from the source material and twisting it a little bit, whether it's with the kid character, I can see how certain things would just fall flat for people if they had no idea. And I think that's actually a flaw in the movie in general. But I think for like the specific fans that come to it with that established knowledge, those things are like really exciting and really fun.
Well, let's talk about the surprises.
Sure.
I mean, I think the first thing, the most obvious thing that we have to mention is not Colossus, is
Juggernaut.
Juggernaut. I mean, that was, some people were hinting. I guess there were hints of Juggernaut.
There was like a frame in the trailer. You can't put trailers for these movies, man, because these fans will just be like, okay, there's a shadow in the left corner. That's obviously this character from X-Men 274. Like people just.
Man, I saw that. That's what I was thinking. Like when they put no spoilers out, I was like, how the hell did they get the Juggernaut man from a shadow? From a shoulder on the side of a head. Because I saw none of that.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Teaser trailer at all.
But what did you think of Juggernaut? Was he a good addition to the movie?
If this is canon, and they have to pull this over into like they want to do one day, into the real X-Men universe, which I thought which they kind of did in this.
Right.
I thought that was a great it's a little gag where they showed like the whole X-Men, like, oh hell no, we're not dealing with this.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was great.
It was a great way to introduce them in there and also make them part of the joke. However, things like when we see it in Deadpool, a comedy, people like Colossus and then the Juggernaut, they work in an aspect of a comedy because they look like cartoons. Mm-hmm. They look like CG cartoon characters. If they put them in a serious movie, like as much as I love Colossus, I can't really see Colossus being in a serious, dramatic part in an X-Men movie because he looks so CG, almost something like out of a DreamWorks movie in a way.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the CG, by the way.
Juggernaut is way better than that soccer playing dude from back in the day.
Right.
Who was the guy that played him at one time?
Oh, I can't remember his name, but he just kind of looked like a buff guy in X-Men. What was the movie? X-Men: The Last Stand. Yeah. He was just like, here's Juggernaut, and it's like, wow, this guy works out. In this movie, it was just a giant.
That's it.
Yeah.
Vinnie Jones played him at one
Right.
That's right. Yes.
Vinnie Jones was like a dude with like a trash can on his head or something, and it did. It didn't work too much. You could tell they didn't have the budget to do it. Maybe in the technology. In this, they did it right. It is the Juggernaut from what I know. Like I said, you're the comic book guy, so you tell me if I'm wrong. But it's definitely a better representation. But also at the same time, it's such a CG creation that I just couldn't buy it if I saw this in a more serious film. I think at this point. But who knows? If I did, I might be able to. But I do like the character.
So what about the addition of the other characters? I mean, we know, Domino was a big part of it, but right. the rest of the X-Force, I mean, that scene where they bring in all these other characters only to just dispose of them right away, that was pretty good. I have to admit, I was, I was pretty, talk about throwing the rule book out the window.
Right. That was kind of hilarious, only in so much as, like, it was kind of a middle finger to all those, like, those same fans that found Juggernaut in the trailer who are like, well, what's the role of the X-Force in this movie? How are these characters going to be introduced? What's their role going forward? And it's just like, nah, they're in one scene and then they die horribly, like truly awful deaths, which really worked for me. Like, it was really funny. And it was like one of those meta moments we were talking about that felt like it reached outside of the movie and was talking directly to the fans. And like, don't think you know what this movie is about just because you watched the trailer 30,000 times.
And that's their MO, right?
Right.
Is to kind of stick it to the people who think that they can one up the movie by knowing everything.
Right, and in an inviting way that doesn't make those people kind of go like, oh, you know what, this movie's trying to tell me off. It's like, okay, this movie's playing with me. It's fun. You know what I mean? It was a good choice, in my opinion, to get rid of those characters.
No, it really, you know what, that scene, it worked almost too well. Because I was so horrified, because I thought Terry Crews was knocked out, until I thought he was going to get up and crawl out the bus until I realized, oh, they're killing everybody.
Right, exactly.
I was laughing, but I was really just, I was nervous to see how the next person was going to die.
It's almost like Final Destination at that point.
It was, yeah.
It really was. And the person I was nervous about the most was Peter.
I love Peter. He's my favorite character.
Peter didn't have no superpowers, man. I just like, man, how's this poor guy gonna get it? It's gonna be horrible when he does, and it was horrible.
It was probably one of the worst. Yeah, the acid.
To die by acid vomit. That's the most degrading. That's the most degrading ass way to die. And Peter's actually one of my favorite dudes in the movie.
Peter didn't deserve it.
They retconned it and let me know for sensitive people like me, like, okay, hey, look, we all made it all right. Everybody lives.
Right.
We went back in time. Great thing about time travel. But yeah, it worked almost. It was a combination of of a horror comedy at that point.
Right.
Yeah, I
Truly.
can't think of any other movie or franchise that's done that. Like that would literally just dangle all these. Like, here you go. Here's people to love. Here's people to reminisce of. Oh, sorry, no, they're gone. They're out of here.
And like you mentioned, Terry Crews. Like, you get excited to see Terry Crews in the trailer. You're like, that's amazing. He's in this movie, and it's like 3 scenes, and then just horrible demise.
So what about the all the jokes? I mean, they went pretty hard. They were pretty vicious with DC.
Yes.
The Martha joke right off the bat.
Right.
And then the I am Batman, and there was, they went after DC, they went after Wolverine. Like we said in our first review, nothing was sacred in this movie, but really nothing.
Yeah, and they really ramped it up from the last movie, where in the last movie they were kind of like restricting the jokes pretty much to the X-Men universe. There was a lot of digs at Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. This time around especially.
Yeah, this time around as well. But in this one, they kind of were just like, well, let's take aim at everybody. And I was reading yesterday that apparently there was a joke planned that was surrounding the merger between Fox and Disney, but that they were advised to take it out, apparently.
Really?
Which may have been a good call. Who knows? But I just feel like they were just taking aim at everybody, and it worked in a way that it was almost endearing to see like a superhero movie tell it like it was in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like, I love these movies. I'm a sucker for these movies. But it was fun to see like one of them just turn to the camera and be like, you know this is silly, right? Like, you realize, and it was fun.
And so what is it? Sorry, you were going to say, Korey?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. You have that.
No, I was going to go into something else. So if you have something to say about that, go for it.
Oh, well, I was just going to say about those jokes. That's one of the things that I thought worked better in the first movie. But here, they piled on so much that they almost they throw so much at you that something hits. But in the first movie, it really seemed, as I said in our review, like it seemed very sincere, some of the jokes that they were making. As in Ryan Reynolds just putting himself out there, just telling everybody, I kind of fucked up. With Green Lantern, I'm gonna put myself out there, make fun of myself for that. And it seemed very sincere and very heartfelt, these jokes that he was making about himself and about the business at the time. Comic book movies needed that. Both Marvel and DC need to be kicked in the ass at the time. And with this movie, I was saying in our review that some jokes seem more obvious this time. Like the whole thing when Cable is stabbing Deadpool in the shoulder and monologuing, and Deadpool says, "Oh, so dark. Must be from the DC universe." That's a running joke between ourselves before we even got to the movie.
Right.
So that's why I thought that one was it was a little just a tad bit better than the first one. But I will say I do love how you could tell how this time they went hard after DC, man. Like joking around with Wolverine is like just kind of joking around with your friend.
Right.
But they really bullied DC, and I'm glad. DC
And
has it
deservedly
covered.
so, right?
I'm gonna piss some people off with that, but DC you did that to yourself.
Fair.
Somebody, they need a cinematic ass whooping like this, man. I'm glad Deadpool was doing that.
I like that as a headline. Deadpool 2 is the cinematic ass whooping DC deserves.
Go with it.
Yeah. The other thing, and I think you're kind of getting on this, is that in Deadpool 1, the jokes seemed more shocking because there was nothing like it before.
Exactly. There's no way to recreate that feeling of the first one.
Yeah, like, oh my God, is he allowed to say that? But in this one, it was just like, yeah, it's Deadpool being Deadpool. So it did lose a little bit of its shock value, but the jokes I found were just landed more for me.
And partly because you were saying, with Ryan Reynolds having a writing credit,
right.
I feel that he really implicated himself that much deeper into the character.
Right. And he just, like we said in our review, he is Deadpool, man. He nailed it. He knocked it out of the park.
No, it's his. That's what I was saying in our review, man. That it's his love that's really selling this movie.
Yeah.
Regardless of any kind of criticism I might have, the reason why I walked out of it really enjoying it is because I was just saying this is really heartfelt. How much Ryan Reynolds is having his dream come true on the screen. And when you have people who love that property that much, and you can see it on the screen, you can overlook a lot of flaws. The only thing I would say about Ryan Reynolds is that we get it. You were sorry about Green Lantern. Quit apologizing. That stinger that we had at the end where he finally shoots himself in the head.
Amazing.
That's the ultimate apology right there. We don't need to hear about Green Lantern anymore. Let's all move on with our lives.
Yes, I agree. Fair enough.
No, I like that joke though. I mean, the end, you know, all the, you know, the kind of tying up of loose ends at the end was pretty amazing too.
Yeah, this is, and I have to say, man, it was that was one of the things that they ended the movie on a great note. You know, all these stingers, which have become sort of a hack thing for movies to do now, they really came in and did the most clever thing in the I guess the most appropriate thing for the true fans out there with the stingers that they had. You know, I had to explain to my wife what was going on, and she didn't know what was happening, but she still laughed for some reason. And I think she just laughed because she said, all these nerds in the theater just enjoying themselves. I don't know what's going on, but I really feel a good vibe right here. And I think that they really did a great job with that.
You know, that's true. I think coming out of that movie, you know, you got the sense everybody in there was having a great time, except for the guy behind us who, turn off your phone!
Yeah, people were.
Anyone who was, yeah, but besides that, there was a sense of joy, I think, from this movie. As violent and, you know, as violent as and gory as it can be, there's a tremendous sense of joy. And you had mentioned, I mean, this movie is all about family, as they say in the, you know, that's not a spoiler, that's, you know,
yeah. To me, coming at it from like the perspective of like writing and plotting this movie out from a screenplay perspective, what the trick of these movies is, and it's kind of unfair to call it a trick, but they go on these wild tangents, but because at the beginning of the movie they tell you, hey, we're gonna land over there. Like in the first one, they're like, this is a movie, this is a love story, right at the beginning. And you're like, how on earth is this a love story? And then when we get there, you finally understand it. The same way in this movie where like, this is a movie about family, and then it goes on this wild, murderous adventure, and at the end it's like, oh yeah, they did tell me it was about family. And that gives them some leeway to go balls to the wall crazy. Because as long as you have it in the back of your mind, hey, this is gonna land somewhere, we've been told it's getting to a thematic beat at the very end, and it ultimately gets there, it's like, oh, and we were all along for the ride. And that's a clever way of being able to just have these crazy set pieces that ultimately, do they tie together super well without that thematic string through them? Maybe not as much, but I think it ultimately works because they're smart enough to include something like that.
And then at the end, you have them all walking, you have the X-Force walking as a family.
Right.
So, you know, that's my question is, so where do we go from here? What is this setting up for the next phase?
Well, I tell you, man, the whole family thing, credit to Deadpool for making an insane psychopath seem adorable. Mm-hmm. You know, it's almost dangerous. It scares me how much I love Deadpool, the character. I mean, this guy's killing everything, and he has no second thoughts about it. It's fun for him, because he makes jokes all the time. And I was cool with it. You know, anybody else I would be disgusted by, but he made it seem he put you in his mindset. This is all fun. Mm-hmm. You know, this is a horrible way to live, but this is fun. But the whole family thing, I felt was forced because of one element, and it was that kid, man. I hated that kid. I'm not gonna lie to you. They took this little sociopath, this murderous sociopath, and tried to tell us like, oh, he just needs some guidance. No, he needs to be dead. Somebody, you know, the whole time I said I was rooting for Cable. I was like, that's the only time I really rooted against Deadpool. Get out the way and let this man do his job. He knows what he's doing. This kid has got to go. And I really did not like that kid Julian Dennison, who, nothing against the actor. I think that kid is very funny, but the character, first of all, is not too different from his character from Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yeah.
And that character, even in that movie, that old man hated him because he was so obnoxious. And so in that movie, he was just an obnoxious kid. In this movie, he's an obnoxious, murderous kid. Right. And I did not have any real emotions for him. And plus, I was talking about how in our review, how it just seemed like with them kind of bringing in this kind of hackneyed plot, this Terminator plot, it just seemed like that season of a TV show where, all right, we need something to do to keep this show going. Let's just bring in a random kid. And, you know, because I felt like that's kind of a cheap way at emotion. Put a kid in here and give him a father figure and make him a team with somebody who's like a big brother or father for him. But a lot of people like that kid, so that's just me.
No, but you're right, because essentially what they used this kid to kind of drive the plot, which you were kind of alluding to was a little bit convoluted, but you know, he was the main driver of that aspect of the plot, and he wasn't that likable. you know, unlike everybody else in this movie, you know, from Peter to Deadpool to Domino to Cable to Juggernaut. So,
yeah, you know, I think the reason why it's not that the kid could not be sympathetic. It's not that they couldn't make the kid something that you had a lot of emotions for, but I think it was clumsy the way they set that kid up. I mean, to get sympathy for that kid, they did the you know, they broke the rule of show don't tell. They just, in a way, they did kind of show us, but they showed us shorthand. They show, oh, if we see him strapped to a chair being electrocuted or tortured or something for a few seconds, that's where you're supposed to feel sorry for him.
right.
I didn't get that. You know, it was more when the development between Deadpool and that kid was comedy, and they didn't really delve into enough of the thing that made him what he is. Besides showing you, oh, he's tortured for a little bit. Oh, and by the way, all these guys. This is crazy to me. All these guys, the workers at the home, the facility or whatever, all of the white suit guys. Oh, by the way, all of them are pedophiles.
Right.
And I was like, really, all of them? You know, that's really hard for me to buy. It was more them saying, hey, all these guys are pedophiles, and we're just telling you this so that when we start murdering them, you know, and massacring them, you're not going to feel bad about it, because it was a little excessive when they started mowing all these guys down. So, I think they were taking some shorthand ways at the story to, like, cheat around getting emotions from us, or, you know, whether that be sympathy or anger. That's why I wasn't too crazy about the story.
So you would have been happier if I keep saying Colossus, if Juggernaut were to have cut the kid in half instead of Deadpool.
I'd be cool with that.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Hey, the kid is gone. The future is safe. I'm all right with that.
So, you know, I guess just before we wrap this up, speaking of the kid and the future, so is X-Force, you know, what are we thinking? Is X-Force now going to replace X-Men? Are they going to reboot X-Men and have kind of like a massive X-team?
I think X-Force is the end game for this little trilogy of the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movies. He's gone out and said, like, Deadpool 3 isn't necessarily going to happen, but there is an X-Force movie in the works. So I think ultimately, with, you know, the news of the DC, the Disney merger and the way that those characters are probably going to get sucked into the MCU machine, I feel like that's like a fun place. There's like one more X-Men movie left planned. There's an X-Force movie planned. There's a New Mutants movie planned. I think that'll be the end of this like school of characters. And if they continue with the comedic tone of Deadpool for the X-Force movie, which they're probably going to because Ryan Reynolds will be in it and it'll spiritually be Deadpool 3, I think that's a smart move and a good way to end the franchise on this like big epic note, I think.
What are you thinking, Korey?
You know what? I think that, first of all, it was really cool that they got to have their cake and eat it too. They got to throw off the fans by killing X-Force and then bringing them back. And I was kind of relieved about that because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to see the Terry Crews die and the rest of everybody. And I really love, and I'm going to say that I would love to see them come back as a team because I already like what I've seen with Domino. I think besides Peter, I think Domino was the best addition to this movie.
Totally.
You know, I thought that she was the one that was funny without the gimmicks. You know, without having the gimmick of looking, you know, being Deadpool. Deadpool did his thing, broke the fourth wall, did the meta humor. Now we had somebody that just did genuine humor without all of that. And I think that's a good indicator of what they could do with the X-Force. X-Force would be a good middle ground between Deadpool and the X-Men. You know, they're a humorous team. They do what they got to do, but they're not goofy. They're just funny. Right. And so, yeah, I think that it would be, as Justin said, it would be a very smart move to get that together. And spiritually, yeah, be Deadpool 3, but don't be Deadpool. You know, be their own thing. Right. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that. They you know, a lot of people say that Marvel's great, Marvel's doing this and doing that, so smart. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But the ones that are taking the real chances, to me, and Justin, you can tell me what you think about this, is 20th Century Fox. They're the ones that are taking the risk with rated R movies. They're the ones that are taking the risk with different tones. I mean, they're even talking about, I don't know if it's under development hell still or not, but the New Mutants, you know, being a horror movie in a way. that is something that's really cool that they're doing, and so that's why it makes me look forward to seeing what they would do with another spinoff property.
Yeah,
so that's a long way of saying yes. I'm looking forward to it very much.
Yeah, it's cool that they found a hole in the market of superhero movies where Marvel won't go, and they've just planted their flag there. And like, we're doing the dark stuff that isn't necessarily the DC PG-13 dark stuff. We're gonna be funny, we're gonna be like outrageous, and we're gonna do it our own way. And I think it's paid off for them really well.
And it's way better than the Fantastic Four crap that they
I think that's safe to say. Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
One day, man.
One day,
I'm still
hopefully.
holding out hope.
Hopefully, yeah. Listen, Korey, thank you very much for joining us. This was great. We'd love to have you back if you'd like to come back at some point.
Providing you're not lying to me, I would love to come back, man.
Then we'll make this a thing. Justin, thank you so much.
Thanks
Korey,
for having me.
thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you like discussions like this, don't forget to subscribe to Mojo Talks, because we got lots of them. So on behalf of Justin and Korey and myself, thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Thank you.
Doing the right thing is messy. But if you want to fight for what's right, sometimes you have to fight dirty. And that is why Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is pure pornography.
Oh, God, I wish I finished college.
It lives up to the hype, plus.
Fuck it, they probably won't even make it 3.
Yeah, why would they? Stop it, too. You killed it.